The mackerel, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the blood. Or there's every chance he had mackerel for his tea.
Oh, dude. Whoa. Have you got him?
Yeah.
Have you got him?
Oh,
what? That was you, that?
You didn't stop it rolling.
Brilliant, dickhead.
It's not my fault. You could have broken his nose there.
How the fuck are you two doing? Are you having a nice afternoon?
I mean, why are you even taking it? What are you going to do with it?
What the fuck do you suggest I do with it? Leave it here? I think a severed head might raise a few questions, don't you, dildo?
No, se entra a la cancha con esos zapatos, presidente. Hay que cuidar el pasto, ¿no crees? ¿Cuántos años tenés tú, Jadwe?
31 años, capitán.
¿Y cuántos campeonatos?
1, capitán. ¿Cuántos campeonatos tienen ustedes con la selección? Que justo se me escapa. ¿Son 3 campeonatos? 4 campeonatos? ¿O ningún campeonato?
What? You standing here in front of God and everybody talking to a bottle of malt liquor? Nah, that ain't crazy.
Mr. Policeman did a number on you, didn't he? Good thing, too. We've been trying to holler at your ass for a minute. Now you can finally hear us. It's just like having a superpower.
Yeah, if crazy was a superpower.
Now, but seriously, you extra as fuck now. Enjoy.
Wait, are you real or?
Let me put it like this. Your third eye is definitely open for business.
No.
Buckle up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rockies Roundtable for Scripted Comedy, where we have gathered a few of this year's outstanding nominees to discuss their work. All of today's guests are nominated for a comedy series. Joining me today is Keith Knight, co-creator and executive producer for Woke.
Hi.
David Livingstone, executive producer for BRASSIC, and also the top contender for the best office Zoom background as well. We also have Armando, creator, writer, and executive producer for El Presidente. How's everyone doing today?
Very good.
So one of the first things I wanted to ask you all is just, can you give us all a background of your journey through the industry, whether it's conventional or unconventional? And also too, what are some of the comedy series that have really stuck with you over the years that have inspired you? And Keith, we can start with you.
I am extremely green and new to the industry. I'm a cartoonist, a newspaper and magazine cartoonist that moved down to Los Angeles when it was pretty evident my industry was going down the tube. So I was like, I'll see if I can develop something for television. And so moved down from San Francisco to LA. And I was just lucky enough to find a producer that really dug my work and felt like I had enough intellectual property to approach someplace like Hulu. And because they are really into looking for unique voices, and they saw something in it, and we got to work on it. And some of the series and things that influenced for me were stuff like All in the Family, some of the old school stuff like All in the Family that were comedies, but they dealt with like real serious issues. So it may be funny, but then get super serious. And also another huge thing was Do the Right Thing, Spike Lee's just classic film. What I loved about Do the Right Thing was everybody had a point of view and it was never said what was completely right and what was completely wrong. It just made you ask questions. And so that's what we are trying to do with the show.
David?
Yeah, I mean, my background was marketing, so I used to, be part of overseeing the posters for Universal and for Working Title, which is a big UK production company. And then basically I kind of got fired after a long period of time and decided to set up my own production company. We made a little film called Pride, so we got quite lucky with the first one. We got nominated for Golden Globe, which I only mentioned because I sat next to Prince at the Golden Globes, which is like, who cares about the film?
Nice.
And we didn't win, by the way, but that was a win. And then we made a film called last Christmas, and we made a film called Judy, which Renee won an Oscar for. Renee Zellweger won an Oscar for last year. So yeah, so I kind of went from marketing through to producing, and yeah, comedy series as well. Curb Your Enthusiasm, but you know, going back to things like Taxi from way back when, like all of those ones that were just like fantastic back then. Yeah, I would say Taxi was one of the ones that like really influenced me, that I loved. It was, you know, proper sitcom territory. Yeah, so that's my little story.
Armando?
Well, I was born, I mean, I'm a fourth generation of filmmaker. My great-grandfather was a producer, and my grandfather was an erotic filmmaker in the 50s, 60s. So, I mean, it's an interesting background. And when he started, he was actor, producer, and director of his films. And when he started to being a little old, he put my father to act in his erotic movies, you know? So kind of, it's a weird background because kind of I was born in this industry when I was little. Then my father became the super agent of the Latin America 007. And so I was very little and always in sets. And so I started to work on this at 16. And from the beginning, I was a PA, location, blah, 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 but also I was already shooting my stuff and already developing stuff. And in parallel of that, I started making very good money in advertising and becoming an advertising director. But in parallel, I started to write movies, and I started collaborating with Alejandro González Iñárritu and my cousin, Nicolás Jacobone. So we wrote Beautiful. That is this movie that it came out in 2009 with Javier Bardem, and which Alejandro directed. And then I made my own movie, The Last Elvis, and that I directed. And I started writing and I'm making my own stuff. We co-wrote, the three of us, Nicolás, Alejandro, and Alexander Dinelaris, we co-wrote Birdman, which it was, I mean, after many years of being very, very dark, you know, trying to make very big dramas. This was our first big attempt in a way with the humor, which it was great. You know, it was, I mean, I always been in love with humor. It's part of my life. And that was the first step where I said like, fuck, I mean, I need to stop being so dramatic, so sad, and start playing more with this, you know? And well, I keep working and writing stuff. And it came to me, this concept of El Presidente, that it was this real drama about corruption. And in a way, for me, it was a big opportunity as a director and for me to find, you know, my own tone, you know, in this kind of stories. And I decided to go to this, in this real story, to change and play with the situations and make it, instead of being a serious, boring corruption scandal, to play with this and make it hilarious, because, I mean, we all know that football is a very stupid business. And I mean, based on that, I mean, I played with the tone a lot in El Presidente, and well, here we are talking about it and about all your stuff.
Look, I love all of these unconventional backgrounds. I think that's what's helping change the industry to bring more exciting and creative content to our screens. But one of the things that I love that you said, Armando, is, you know, how you didn't want to necessarily take a corruption story and make it so straightforward and boring. But one of the things that I love about all of these series is that even though they are comedies, they still deal with heavy issues. They still talk about corruption, talk about experiences as a Black man in America, and also too trying to get out of a life of crime. And so I wanted to ask all of you, how do you really balance, you know, the drama, these issues that we talk about, issues that people are facing every day, but still find a way to make it light with the comedy as well? And David, we can start with you.
Well, I mean, we tend to kind of like try and straddle that, you know, like life, you know, hilarious one minute and totally tragic the next. But the this particular show that we have, BRASSIC, is the co-creator is a guy called Joe Gilgun, and the story, for those that don't know, is it's about a guy that lives in the woods, and his only friends are there, and he's got mental health issues, and it's a place called Hawley, Greater Manchester. Well, the real guy, Joe Gilgun, when I met him, lived in a tent in a house in the woods and has got the same mental health issues, and lives in Chorley, Greater Manchester, not Hawley, Chorley. So you can see we went quite a long way with the creativity there. But that's what he is. He's the funniest guy that I know, and he's completely electric. But also he's got these, you know, bipolar disorder that it brings him to his knees. But he is, you know, he's on a maraca full of drugs every day. And, you know, he would be completely frank if he was on here now, and you would know. But he's both hilarious and also has an emotional truth unlike anybody I've ever met. So there was nothing but, you know, this was the way it was going to go, and this is the way every script goes, and this is the way every setup goes, with the funniest guy in the world that also has a recognition of, you know, the difficulty of any journey, you know, the difficulty of falling in love when you've got mental health issues, and you know, having friends who you have to count on. So it was, you know, it was very much based on a lot of conversations that we had, where he was saying, you know, he would talk about falling in love and talk about being lonely and but unable to bear spending time with people. And, you know, so a lot of the characters you see in the show are old friends of his and are based on, so, you know, again, if you haven't seen it, there's, you know, in the first episode of the first series, he, you know, they're stealing Shetland ponies, which are those tiny little horses. They did do that. That's a real thing, you know, like, and then because of having to cover them up, they had to dye them a different color. So they had to get this kind of like hair dye, British hair dye, to change the color. And yet in the next scene, it's kind of like the tragedy of a broken heart. And I was like, oh, can you bring these two things together side by side and genuinely make it feel like a whole? And somehow it seems to have happened. It seems, you know, somehow it seems to work. But yeah, ours just came from it being true, is the reality of it.
Thank you.
Wow, that sounds great. Yeah, it's, you know, there's such a fine line between tragedy and comedy that, like, as far as being Black in America, it's traditionally been, you gotta laugh at some of the stuff that to just be able to deal with the experiences that we have to deal with. And there is a trend right now with Black history, with the trauma that we've gone through, and it's all coming to the surface, and it's all being put on TV. And I'm just having a hard time, like, being able to sit through a lot of it, because I know the history. I don't need to see it recreated in front of me. And so I made it a point that when we were doing this, like, I don't want to see violence. I want to see the microaggressions that we have to deal with every day, and just have that sort of surreal. It was the same thing that I think David was going through, which is, could we mix in the surreal elements? We use puppetry and stuff to go through what's going on in the head of the main character. Can we mix that in with police brutality? You know, can we go from this serious issue to this humorous discussion with a talking trash can? And you know, it was tough to convince the executive, not the executive producers, but the network and executives. But you know, once we got the first scene done with the computer stuff and the puppetry, that's when we showed them. We didn't want to show Lamorne, the lead character, talking to a guy shaking a trash can. We put all the effects in, and once they saw that, they were like, oh, okay, this is gonna work. And so you just don't know what's gonna happen until you try it, and thankfully it worked out.
And ARMANDO?
Well, I mean, in El Presidente, I mean, the idea, it was already to be based on the, as I said, on the FIFA gate, no? And it's a corruption scandal that it exploded, I mean, by the FBI, you know? So in a way, for me, I mean, I'm a big fan of football, soccer, or whatever you want to tell it, but say it, but I mean, it's very based on, I mean, if you go to a real tone, to a credible story, you are really not doing the real story, because the characters in this world of this kind of mafias, and in, I mean, not only Latin America, but I mean, what it became the sports, you know, in the world, you know, I mean, they became such a huge thing that is so stupid in a way, you know, when you analyze really how addicted we are to this kind of sports and how much money they move, you know, and the truth is that it's just an entertainment thing, you know, and some people cry. So for me, all those feelings were like how crazy it is that all this business, all these hilarious characters, all this crazy world that is behind of this stupid sport, which I love, but how to make it special, you know, because if not, it would be dry, boring, you know, just people bringing money. And this is not narcos, you know, that they are killing people everywhere, and drugs. And I mean, it's so interesting. And this was just a sport, you know, and so for me, it really was a great opportunity to bring the reality into the screen, you know, and also to say, hold on, these characters are there, and they need to be very, very funny, because they are funny in their reality. And when we defined that the story was going to be told by the Godfather when he's dead, when he passed away, that in a way he got nothing to lose, and he was going to tell it from heaven, or, I mean, of course, I've kind of started to find the real tone, you know, about that this was very an hilarious way of telling this crazy world. And also having a character like this guy, Sergio Jadue, that he's a loser from a little team in Chile that nobody cares and nobody knows him. And suddenly this guy will explode the world of corruption in the world. I mean, it was pretty absurd, you know, the humor, it was very there, you know, this guy that suddenly is being pressured by the FBI, but also arriving to the top of the world of the corruption in this business. So in a way, it was very, very absurd, the real situation. So for me, it was just pushing the limits just to arrive to the real story and not to just to make it funny in a way. No, of course, it was a big work, a big job to make it funny, but the condiments were there for me, you know. I just needed to give them value and reality to those crazy elements in a way, you know.
Now, I mean, at this point, we're celebrating all of these series. They've all been nominated. And I know that we love to talk about the show after it's actually hit our screens. But what I really want to talk about is the challenges that you face actually bringing these shows to life. And so if you can talk about any of the challenges that you experienced, whether it's from actually trying to pitch the series, you know, Keith, you talk about actually putting the graphics to show them what this idea can look like on television. But I really want you to speak more to that journey, because we're at the end of the road, but we need to talk about the bumps that we had along the way to get there. And Keith, you can start for you.
Yeah. You know, we talked a little bit about this in the pre-interview yesterday, but it was just really interesting, just sort of how when you're going to pitch at these networks, how intimidating it can be, because you're walking down these halls with these gigantic posters of their successes and everything. And I feel like they get bigger as you get closer to the door you have to go in, and you get smaller as you're going in. And so I just remember when I was there, I would psych myself up by sitting in my car in the parking lot, and I brought all the awards with me that I had won as a cartoonist and put them on the dashboard, and I would sit there and psych myself up going, they have never seen you, they've never seen anyone like you before, they need you, you know. And I would just go in there super hardcore. And one of the things that I did was Dark Horse, a comics publisher, put out a 500-page collection of my work. And so it was the size of like an old phone book. So when I would go there and pitch, I pitched to HBO, Amazon, Hulu, Showtime. When I was done with the pitch, I would pull out that 500-page book and I would chuck it up in the air and it would slam on the table. And I would go, there's your first 10 seasons. And then I would walk out. And it probably didn't connect with most people, but the Hulu executive, he said to me when we were shooting up in Vancouver, he said, you know, when you threw that book on the table, he said, that's when you sold the show. And that's like, all right, that's good to know that the drama works. but just, you know, there's so many different obstacles that you run through, whether it was, you know, trying to figure out the tone in the writer's room, to when we shot up, you know, we didn't have the money to shoot in San Francisco. So we shot up in Vancouver, and we shot in January and February, and it snowed or rained 32 straight days. And so, like, it doesn't snow in San Francisco. So trying to get all the actors to, like, you know, take off their jackets and walk around like when it was freezing out was a really tough thing. And you had to do things on the fly, like switch outdoor scenes into indoor scenes. But I think that's part of the amazing thing about production is when you're under duress and you have to make do, I think you sometimes come up with the best ideas. And so there were things that happened in the show because they were brought indoors, because we were writing on the fly, because we just came up with stuff at the last minute that just totally worked. And we were just like, oh my goodness, like this is, I think if we had all the money in the world and all the time, it's the difference between what Star Wars was with George Lucas. I'm not comparing my show to Star Wars, but he didn't have the budget. Half the effects didn't exist yet. Sandstorms, all this stuff, he created Star Wars. When he had all the money in the world, all the technology in the world, he created, you know, the prequel movies. So like it's not just about everything that you have, but it's also what you don't have, you know. So
George Lucas actually did Howard the Duck, didn't he?
Yes. Yes, he did.
Marvel property movies. Yes. I love the Howard the Duck reference, okay? His name. But Armando, can you tell us about the experience of, you know, bringing this FIFA scandal to television?
It was crazy, very difficult because, I mean, they came to me when they had a couple of scripts and I read them and I really didn't like it, you know, like I really loved the case, you know, I knew that this world of the FIFA gate, it was for me. But also when I read it, it was something that, and they had a starting point, you know, to shoot, you know. So I said, listen, I mean, I'm really tempted because I was looking for a good opportunity to do a TV show, you know. I had something that we saw very big and then it wasn't done. So I was very frustrated. And this was like a big opportunity. I told them, listen, I mean, they had only 5 months to shoot. And I told them, we need to rewrite it all, like from scratch. So I had a great support from Gaumont, you know, that is the producers, that they said, well, I mean, if you see this way, we follow you. You know, the show was already green lighted and I needed to tell of course, to Amazon and to the producers, to everyone, this new vision that it wasn't going to be serious. So in a way, it was pretty difficult, you know, because of course, I mean, from my side, it was like, it was this way, or I couldn't do it because I totally see this as a parody, you know, as a satire. So in a way, I was really lucky that they supported this vision, you know, this way. And we entered in this crazy adventure of producing and writing. And I need to say that I was pretty lucky that in a way, not having time and already start to shoot when I was writing, in a way was very good because in a way I learned what it was working and what it wasn't working, you know? So in a way, of course, it was pretty easy to me to understand that. I mean, I would not do a typical FBI story, you know, because I mean, I don't know, it would be impossible to do it, you know? I mean, with a big quality, you know, this is not a Fincher movie, you know, like you see those FBI big movies, you know, and this was like, just, you know, it should be with humor, anti-hero, and not being focused on this investigation, you know, but also you need to tell the police the thriller situation. So in a way, I mean, it was learning through the process, always keeping in mind the extreme scenes, the extreme situations, and writing in parallel of shooting. It was like a big deal. Of course, again, I was very lucky because they supported me creatively, and also from the production perspective, it was crazy because, I mean, we shot in Chile, but also my ambition, it was like, I mean, it started not such as a big show, but also, I mean, for me, it was a show that it was everywhere in the world. You know, I mean, it's a corruption scandal in the world, not in Chile, you know? So there, in a way we needed to find, many countries and many, international characters. So I guess that we shaped the basis of this production in really not so much time, and again, that maybe those kind of things, it could happen in Latin America, like in a way you have that flexibility that maybe in Hollywood, they would fire me the day I would go and say, I need to rewrite everything, So these kind of stories are really possible in places that they are not, everything is not done, everything is not, structured. So you have this possibility to try to do your own rules, and that is very good, because then, you can see it on screen, and that freshness, I guess that we find it through the journey, and I think it was, again, I was very lucky that I had this support, to follow the instinct and to see this as a satire and as a parody and not as a real case, of money thing and business, and I guess that was the biggest deal, to how to make it happen, because, and how to keep the tone all the time, because it's all the time you need to take decisions about performances, about music, so it's just starting from scratch all the time, because of course I had this freedom to do it in Latin America, but also, it's not so developed, the industry, so you need to be in every detail, in everything. So so it was pretty kind of crazy because I needed to, as I said in the beginning, I needed to play in every role, and I needed to sacrifice a lot of blood and sweat, and so to keep the comedy side, because it wasn't the first instinct, for everyone, everybody wanted to do it real, and real is not so interesting for me, so it was a big deal keeping the tone in every level and making it happen. It was, I can tell you 100 stories and they are all, maybe I guess that they will look the same, but it was all about keeping the right tone,
Thank you. David, tell us about the challenges, of being a producer on BRASSIC, executive producer.
Well, I will say this, I think naivety is like a great kind of strength. We hadn't made a TV show before. I honestly had no idea how to make a TV show. Absolutely presumed we were going to get it made. Joe had, so Dominic West, who was in this film that we'd made, which Joe Gilgan was in, said, you got to speak to Joe Gilgan. He's got these amazing stories, and like the Shetland Pony thing came up. And I was like, yeah, fantastic. And he said, you should make it into a TV show. And I went, yeah, great. So I spoke to Joe, and then I didn't know Joe that well, but he's kind of like, very big character. And he said, look, I'm going to have a first crack at writing the script. So he went off and he wrote it, and he sent me pictures of it. I said, why have you sent me pictures? And he said, because it's written on wallpaper. And it was on 8 meters of wallpaper that they put around this shed outside. It was also written on an old deck chair, like this stuff. And I said, this is appalling. Not only I can't present this to anyone, but it's shambolic both in presentation and content. So we started off going in entirely the wrong direction. We got a great writer called Danny Brocklehurst to write it, commissioned by a channel that we won't mention. I was like, fantastic, we're off to the races. This is fantastic. Anyway, we get to the end, they write the script. I think it's great, actually. I'm really surprised how good it is. Submit it to them, they put it in turnaround. Within a day, it's in turnaround. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is terrible. So we went and pitched it to Sky, and Sky were teetering and they were on the brink, but we had to get a sum of money from elsewhere, which again, I can't get into because it's politically not good, but we spent 3 or 4 months trying to get this. It's a small chunk of money, but it's always that bit that is the bit that's going to get you made or not going to get it made. It wasn't entirely financed by Sky. By the way, I didn't know how to finance it either. So it was like trying to piece all of these things together. We're just like, well, other people must do it, so it's got to be possible. But we go and pitch to Sky, and Joe has got tattoos. I'm not kidding, from here down to his toes. And so he tells the story of BRASSIC through in the Soho house by showing his tattoos and talking through stories of parts of his life, showing these tattoos off. And I'm like, could be a good plan, might not be a good plan. Everyone's staring. But yeah, somehow they give us the money. We find this extra chunk of money from somehow. We get the show on the road and shooting it. But it's you know, it is the difficulty of shooting it is trying to shoot something with somebody that has got serious issues. So there was one thing which I kind of want to mention, but I'm not sure what. How can I say a slightly rude word or not? No. No. Yes.
Just go for it. If it's bad, we can bleep it out.
Well, it's kind of rude. Okay, I'm going to say the word dildo. Okay, so Joe is, you know, like this. The fury comes out at times when you're not expecting it. So we call it dildo gang, which is where there's a moment where they find this antique dildo in one of the episodes, and but then it arrives on the set, and Joe's furious. But like, it's not really Joe; it's bipolar. And it's this, he's calling me up and I'm in London and he's in Manchester saying, I'm gonna walk, this dildo is not at all what it was meant to look like. And we're having this massive argument about this dildo, and I'm saying, well, don't worry, we'll deal with it in visual effects. And like, you sort of think, is this really the job that I signed up for? You know, like, is this really what it's about? But it kind of is, you know, and you know, it's nice to deal with, you know, it's difficult because that kind of temper can get you, and complications can in life get you rejected. And I've known people and know people very close to me that have got mental health issues. And it's, you know, it's much more open than it used to be. But it's quite nice to be in that business, to kind of know that, frankly, there's these geniuses that are out there that are struggling and are not accepted in so many ways. And then, you know, this guy's got the huge successful TV show on Sky, you know, the biggest for 10 years, and yet he's got all of these complications. But, you know, it means that, you know, in scripting or whatever, you have to make allowances for it at certain times, and there have to be certain sorts of understandings, and you have to recognize that sometimes it's a mental health condition that's, you know, shouting at you, not the guy. So that's that I would say that's the big difference to most shows, and that's that, you know, it's no doubt it's an added layer of complication. It's definitely one I'm happy to embrace, you know, that's for sure.
Look, I'm loving the feedback. I'm gonna, next time I need to get something done, I'm slamming books on tables. I'm gonna have pictures and storyboards on my body. I'm loving these new ideas. But, you know, Keith, I wanted to ask you a question because, you know, it's one thing to have a show, you know, where your shows are kind of based on people, but how is it being a part of a casting process where you're casting a version of yourself on Woke?
Well, frankly, it turned out to be a bit easier than I thought, which is really Lamorne Morris from New Girl saw the script and just said, this is me, and just reached out, and you know, once he did some sides for us, it was pretty obvious that he was it. He just had sort of similar experiences with what I had gone through, and it was just a great fit. I can't tell you how lucky we were, and all the actors sort of just coming out of the blue. You know, I would say the biggest surprise was T. Murph, who plays Clovis in the show. Clovis was supposed to be a much bigger guy, and T. Murph is this comedian. He's never had a regular role before, and he came in, and he's I don't think he's Kevin Hart's height, but he's around there. But he came in with this huge personality, and it was my wife. She was like, "That's Clovis right there," and everything just sort of came together. And they're both from Chicago, so they had a great rapport together, and yeah, it's just, you know, it's just trying to not necessarily recreate my existence. It's sort of just getting the sensibility and sort of you know, it's more like I inspired the character. And in season 2, we're sort of going off in a way that is, that's going to incorporate things that have happened to me. But the storyline is now, and we're sort of exploring the idea of what happens when woke becomes a brand, when woke is co-opted by corporations and companies. So that's what we're looking at for season 2.
He's a super handsome guy, the guy that plays you, Keith. I want him to play me as well, by the way. He's really, I was like, that's the guy I want.
No, yeah, no.
I would cast him without him reading.
You know, I gotta tell you, I tried to steal clothes off the set because they had all these nicer clothes than what I usually wear. So it's really funny. Just I was able to nick all the art equipment because they literally used for props all the stuff that I used anyway. So it's fun.
Armando, I do have a question for you because when you look at your body of work, you do more serious dramas, right? And I really want to know, after this experience of working on El Presidente, you know, has this made you want to delve deeper into comedy, or have you kind of scratched the itch at this point and you're like, I'm going to go back to what I've been doing?
I mean, I really found myself a lot more in humor, you know, like, using the humor, no? I mean, I guess that what we said about talking about important things and meaningful things, but always thinking about them from the cynic perspective, it really represents me, you know, the way I see many, many things. So, I mean, it depends on each story, no, or each idea. It's not about me, it's about the project that I'm involved with, you know, and the DNA of what is good. If for that story or character is good to have humor, to see it with a cynic perspective, or sometimes, you know, you need to not to bring the humor because maybe the story, it doesn't need it. So it's not about me, it's about the projects. Of course, humor is about me, so it will be always around me and it's integrated in what I do. But it really depends on each type of project, you know. Of course, I think that it's adding humor or irony to everything. It's always a lot. I mean, it's a smarter thing, no? It's a different way of. I mean, it allows you to touch a lot of themes, you know. That is very interesting what you can say, you know, using humor. I mean, I'm playing with it and not taking it just serious, you know. But again, it really depends on what is the story I'm telling. And again, I will never prioritize what I want to be more important than what it should be, you know, like, so it should be with what is the right tone for what I'm doing in a way.
Okay, thank you. David, you know, I love that you have this marketing background before you got into producing. I wanted to know, how was your experience in marketing? Has that changed how you see projects, like before you decide to take on a new movie or series? How much does that have to play into what you decide to actually take on?
I mean, I think you do go, has this got something that's unique about it? And is this something that I can sell? I also fight against it as well, because I think sometimes brilliant stories aren't always apparent. Like, you don't want everything to just be able to be reducible to a copy line. So I'm more trusting of the hair on the back of the neck going up when you read something or you see something, and it could be a great piece of art, or it could be just a moment or a little thing that you hear on a podcast, or, you know, just sometimes it's about building things. So it's, yeah, I do. Ultimately, you need to get it to a point where you go, the great thing about this is it catches people's attention. The thing I forgot to mention when you asked me the question before is, when we did Picture to Sky, BRASSIC, I said, how many projects do you get a month? And they said, we'd get 60 a week. And I was like, I wouldn't have even knocked on their door. I would have just have disappeared. You know, like, it was like, I would have, you know, we wouldn't stand a chance if I knew that piece of information. But I didn't. So I think you have to go with something that is, you have to find something that basically gives you passion in some sense, rather than just a package. you know, you can build the package, but you can't build the passion, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I'm still in that quote right there.
Yeah, that's a great comment.
Even I thought it sounded great, just fell out.
And just the comment that you just made resonates with me really well, because my 12-year-old is on a baseball team, and I know this is a little off topic, but he just pitched this amazing game where he came in and like he didn't know what the score was, but he had to get the next two people out to end the game. And I think if he knew that what the score was, it might have been more difficult to get them out. But because he didn't know, he was able to focus and get these guys out, and it was pretty amazing. Now he's about to dispute that. I'm going to mute myself.
Well, it's interesting that both of you bring that up, because working on different projects as creators, you learn so many things throughout the creative process. But as you spoke about actually working with the networks, doing financing, budgeting, trying to bring these shows to life, I want to know, what advice would you give yourselves at the beginning when you were first coming up with these ideas, now that you've gone through the entire process? So if you knew then what you know now, what would you tell yourself? And Armando, we can start with you.
I guess I just keep pursuing, no? I guess that, of course, we all tell the stories when they are well known, or when, I guess that we talk about this project now that it was released, and I guess that it was kind of successful. But I had a lot of projects that they are not moved, or they were taking time, and they are evolving in a way. So I guess that is pursuing what you think and what you feel in a way, no? Which is maybe a cliche, it's not that original, sorry, but it's just being tough and keep going, If someone is not understanding what you want to do, that's you need to keep the lab for that project, and think, of course, why it's not moving, but of course it's, again, trusting in what you feel and what you want to do, because it's all about that, no? It's about being tough and waiting for the right time and finding the right people or right actor or the right maturity that you need to have to that project. So I guess that is just trusting in yourself, that there is something there that is special. So it's just, again, it's being tough and waiting, or keep going. It's something that is in your instinct, but it's not saying, it's never saying this is not good. No, it's always, it can evolve for me. It can be better, but it's always, if I like it, there is something there, so it's the only thing I learned through the years, or I've been learning.
Thank you. And David?
Yeah, I think my answer is similar in a way. It's not about this project. I wouldn't have done anything at all, I don't think, differently. But in life, I wish I'd had more self-belief to kind of go, okay, I'm going to go and do this 10 years earlier. I wish I'd just gone, I might, I don't care what anybody else thinks. There's everything that builds against you about your own self-belief in terms of what you might be capable of. And truth is, why are you any worse than anyone else? It's not like they're all got these amazing ideas that's so much better than yours. You just, and I think this for anyone that's like, anyone that's kind of listening, it's like, it sounds corny to sort of say, believe in yourself, but I think you do have to just get on with it. And of course you suffer rejection, and but those people that reject you aren't, in the case of our show, the people that rejected us actually afterwards on a panel, kind of, similar to this, said, oh, if BRASSIC had come to us, we would have made it. And I said in the panel, but you turned it down and you commissioned it. So, who knows? No one knows, is the truth. No one knows any better than you do. So yeah, that's kind of a roundabout answer.
And that's never corny, because imposter syndrome is very real.
Yeah, totally. That's what I say. Again, the guy that's in BRASSIC, the co-creator, he always goes, I don't know anything. And I just go, well, why do you not? We have this expression in editing called blue suit, red suit, blue jacket, red jacket, which is just try it. What do you mean you don't know what you're talking about? You know, like, just try it. Like, let's just do it and see if it works. And like, you know, same with takes. Just, you know, like, yeah, it might be nonsense. Just do it, take a risk. You know, like, and then we'll see. We'll find out later. You know, like, you can make decisions, and magic happens that way. You know, total magic. You find things that you just aren't written. You had no idea, jokes that you had no idea were there, like that are just visual jokes that couldn't be scripted, where you just go, oh my God, that's a piece of magic. That you'll remember forever, and you'll think, oh my God, I wish that was my idea. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this is probably just another version of what they're saying, which is, I think the advice would be to do not be afraid to fail. I think one of the reasons why we hesitate not to act on certain things is we're afraid that it's not going to work, and failure seems to be one of the best ways to learn and to grow. And so I'd say the same thing. Like, I wish I had done this 20 years earlier, and you know, but it happens at this time for a reason. But moving forward, I would just say to people coming up after me, do not be afraid to fail, and tell your story. If you don't tell your story, somebody else is going to do it for you, and they're going to get it wrong. So, you know, so bring your story is as valid as anybody else's.
Man, I have other questions to ask you, but I kind of feel like since I just got my dose of therapy today, I don't know if we should end it there or keep going.
No, it's amazing. I mean, I love hearing everybody's stories, and just, yeah, there's so much to learn off of all the creators and all the shows. Just examples of just seeing like what works, and just the creativity. I mean, that's the one thing I love just about my time in Los Angeles. Even though, like, you always just met people, they may be working on something else, but they also have this passion project that they're just really excited about. And it was always fun to hear that. And, you know, I was one of those folks, like in the cafe talking about the show that I'm supposedly writing. I'm sure people are like, yeah, all right, Mr. Cartoon Man. But you know, I love the idea of just sort of the voices out there. And hopefully with Zoom, you know, the pandemic, it has been devastating, but in some ways, you know, we had a Zoom room where we had writers from not only Los Angeles, but Chicago, and, you know, here in North Carolina. It opened things up so people could contribute from different places. And so I hope that will lead to more voices being included. But we'll see. I think we can merge what we had and what the future, you know, this new future. But I just love the idea of seeing so many new voices being added to the mix. Just not so much Black trauma.
I was like, that part. But I want to thank all of you for taking this time to speak with me today. I'm sharing your experiences in the industry and with your series. I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And best of luck to all of you for your nominations. And make sure everyone that is watching that you tune in to the 2021 Rockie Awards that will be live streaming on YouTube on Tuesday, June 15th. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, guys. Pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.